This is the Conrad Alert. Civil defense information will be broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
For 5 years, 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada. Streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Telegram, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is February the 7th, 2023, and this is episode 249 of the Workshop Podcast. So, how the hell is everyone? I see Chris Dixon over on YouTube and RZ on Twitch right now. Good to have you. In case anybody thinks I look a little different, we got a new setup here with a new cam and a new monitor, whole bunch of things we're playing with. So, if I look uglier than normal, well, that's just me. So, anyway, 3 quick announcements, and then I'm going to bring on my awesome guest, Aden, tonight. Tomorrow is episode 250. So, we're just going to celebrate a little bit. It'll be fun. Same bat time, same bat channel. Also, you got 2 more days to enter the Groundhog Day giveaway, and that is at toolmantim.co. Go by there. We got 5 incredible prizes. We've got just over 200 entries already, so make sure you get in before I cut it off. And finally, Thursday evening, we are going to be joined by Cam and Colby of the Casual Preppers podcast. We are going to do a discussion on the greatest movie ever made, otherwise known as Signs by M. Night Shyamalan, or at least close to it. So anyway, without further ado, let me bring on Mr. Aden. How are you, Mr. Aden?
Hey, man. What's up? Glad to be here.
Good to have you. So if anybody wonders, Aden's on audio only, so you're not missing anything out if you're listening to the recording of it. So, so how are you, sir?
It's been good, man. It's been cold and windy and just trying to get stuff done. Still been sunny, so I've been able to get some stuff done outside, but that's what's up.
Yeah, up here, we have had above seasonal temps for about 6 weeks. It's been awesome. You know, for snow removal, it is what it is. I'm on flat rate kind of contract, so it doesn't matter. So, oh yeah, go ahead, sir.
Well, I was just going to say the Signs is good, but I still say The Sixth Sense is the best movie ever made.
Okay, you know what? Let's just start right off. So here's my deal. I was in college when The Sixth Sense came out. I was actually at Bible college, so we didn't get a lot of chance to kind of get away and watch movies. So by the time I finally got to see Sixth Sense that summer, the ending had been spoiled for me. So yeah, right? Because, you know, by then everybody was quoting, I see dead people. And so maybe if I'd have seen it right away and the ending had blown me away, I might be a little more, you know, partial to it. But yeah, I dig it. Sixth Sense is good. I like Unbreakable too. And yeah, and then some of his went downhill for a bit, and maybe he's working his way up now, you know?
I think his glory days were back with, like you were saying, Signs and The Village and all that. My favorite movie is Braveheart, but I think the best as far as thematic element is got to be The Sixth Sense.
Yeah, I dig it. Absolutely. And Braveheart. Yeah, man, how can you not watch Braveheart and get excited, you know?
Yep. Probably seen that movie 50 times.
So, let's start. Well, just fill me in a little bit on who Aden Tate is. You're the Last American. Is that's your podcast?
Yeah, man, you got it. So my podcast is The Last American over at Prepper Broadcasting. I am over there every Saturday and talk about current events, what's going on in the world. We'll talk about philosophy. We'll talk about Christianity. So that's what I talk about over there. And as far as different places that I write for, I do the Friday history column over at pewpewtactical.com. So like pew pew, like a laser gun. Yeah. So not like poo poo, but pew pew. So you can find my stuff over there. It's a picture in history, and it's a little blurb as far as unknown segments in history that people don't really know about. And we'll talk about stuff there. I do current events and other prepping related items over at The Organic Prepper. So you can find stuff over there just throughout the week. And I do a little bit as well with Mira Safety as far as sea burn survival situations. So those are some of the different places that I write.
Okay, that's cool. So I'm going to pick your brain then. What was your most recent history segment that you said you write about history that people aren't necessarily aware of? What have you been talking about lately?
Yeah, so I wrote one just this past Friday on General Schwarzkopf, looking at how he conducted war during the first Gulf War and some of his strategy that he did with his big left hook, and how he ended up pretty much winning the war. Like, it was just amazing. And the Chinese study this. If you ever have read Unrestricted Warfare, which is the Chinese 1998 military manual that they put out, two colonels wrote it. They study Schwarzkopf's movements extensively, and they're like, look, this guy used helicopters to round up these people like cattle. They look at all his different techniques and stuff. And Schwarzkopf was a smart dude. And as far as warfare goes, I think he was the last time that within the U.S., the dogs were off the chain. And we said, all right, go get them. And he went and he got them.
What was his nickname?
Oh, gosh. Man,
because I'm trying to, it's right on the tip of my tongue. I don't know if I'm not sure. I remember, I remember when the first Gulf War happened, and ProSet had their Gulf War cards out. I don't know if you've ever seen them or heard about them, but they had one for General Schwarzkopf, and he had a nickname, and I think it was on that, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was.
All I can think of nickname wise right now is Mad Dog Mattis.
Oh,
that's
Stormin Norman. Thank you.
Stormin Norman. Okay.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was thinking, that's great. I love it. There's always somebody out there that can, help my brain move along a little bit. So, well, you know what? We weren't going to go down this route, but I want to just pick your brain a little more then. How did you get involved in history, and why do you think it's kind of important? I know that's a loaded question, and I'm sure we feel the same, but what's the importance of looking back on some of that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. So I've always been a history nerd. It's just, I've always loved story, and like we were talking about Braveheart, everybody loves story. That's inside everybody. And to know something that has happened in the past that's not only inspiring, but something that can teach you, as far as these are good things to aspire to as far as actions. This is, if you end up in this kind of situation, this is a cautionary tale. You don't want to do this. As well as you can look at what's going on in the world around. Of course, everybody knows that. That's so, like, currently I've found myself studying World War II a whole lot, particularly the 1930s Germany area.
Sure.
And I always kind of felt like I had been saturated with World War II because there's so many movies on it, and you just end up to the point where you're like, oh man, I don't know if I can read about the Holocaust anymore. I'm just tired of it. And then you start living through post 2020 world, and you're like, okay, I'm seeing a lot of very eerie things that are very reminiscent of World War II type stuff, and I want to know more about it. I want to know more about how that played out for them, just to see what the historical precedent is, as far as these laws passed and then this happened to these people, and so on down the chain.
It's interesting. Hey, I mean, to young kids, it seems like that's a long time ago, but 1930s. I mean, we're getting on almost a century ago, but it's hard to believe how fast we can forget lessons that are made. Hey.
Yep, for real.
Go ahead.
That's just part of the human condition, I think, too.
I look at the I was listening to who was it? There was a comedian there on YouTube earlier, and he was talking about how it seems like every young generation thinks that it was Bill Maher, his latest monologue or whatever, and he was talking about how every generation thinks that whatever their ideals are or whatever their ideas are, they're fresh and new, and nobody's ever thought that or ever felt that way before.
Yeah.
And it just, it's funny because I remember being a bright-eyed and optimistic 20-year-old thinking, I'm going to change the world, or at least if I vote a little harder, maybe I will. And then, I don't know, things change as time goes on. You realize, what do they say? History doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes.
Yeah, I think that was Mark Twain, right?
I think it was. Yeah, he's a lot smarter dude than I am, I should say. So what do you talk about on your podcast, The Last American?
Yeah. So, okay. So I'll tell you some of the things that I've been thinking about lately. So the most recent podcast, we were looking at Chat GPT, which
Oh
I
yeah.
called Chat GPI through the whole podcast. Just
Oh, it's because
Chat
it
GPT.
ends in like API or something, doesn't it? On the yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And so we were looking at what are some of the ramifications of that, as well as artificial intelligence and what that is going to end up producing in today's world. And I am of the belief that this is one of the most groundbreaking technologies that we have seen that's going to revolutionize the world, very much like the smartphone did when Steve Jobs brought the smartphone to the world. But I think it's going to have a much more profound impact than what Steve Jobs did in that regard. And I think there's going to be a lot of scary dangers akin to like the smartphone. We know now that's in essence just a tracking device, right? It's a camouflage tracking device. People carry it on their person all the time. There's dangers there. And there are going to be even crazier dangers with these types of, whether you're looking at OpenAI or you're looking at ChatGPT or you're looking at Dolly or any of those new generation AI technologies or the spinoffs that are soon to come and fill their shoes in their footsteps. These are things that people need to at least have some level of understanding as far as, okay, these dangers are coming down the road, and just so they don't get blindsided.
I just had a guy on about 2 weeks ago, a PA prepper, Josh Sloan. He's also my IT guy. And we ended up, I didn't even know we were going to go down this rabbit hole, but we spent about 40 minutes live demoing Chat GPT or whatever. It was the first time I'd even played with it. And I was blown away. I sound like a little kid at Christmas. Like, what the hell is it? It was interesting, right? And
yep.
So I mean, my opinion is technology is amoral. Some go one way, some go the other, and they can be used for either or. It definitely looks to me like, there's definitely some negative ramifications from there. Do you see any positive ramifications coming from this either?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think as far as with journalism ability, as much as I hate that, right? That's what I do full time is write. And this is going to devastate the world of writing, particularly online. I mean, even in print, even magazine. It's going to devastate it. And the good parts that I could see where, okay, this would be beneficial would be with it being able to connect the dots with journalism where humans can't. Well, the catch there, of course, is that the way ChatGPT is programmed, it's very left-leaning, where it will very much advocate critical race theory type concepts and things of that nature. So if you ended up with a true, just like it wasn't programmed to be that way, you could end up with some interesting discoveries through that kind of work.
I was putting together, I had to put together 3 kind of titles and summaries of some presentations I'm doing coming up. And what I found was I actually used it quite a bit today because I find it a shortcut for Google. And of course, with Google now, you've got to cut through so much junk to find anything.
Yep.
But instead of like typing in, synonyms or whatever for certain words or rephrasing and that sort of thing, I was letting Chat GPT do it for me. And so it was doing that kind of quick research while I was typing a few things up. And it sped the process up for me. I kind of enjoyed that part of it anyway.
Yep. And as far as dangers of it, some of the things that I think you're going to see, particularly with deep fake style technology being combined with this, you're going to have a very hard time. We talk about the good as far as journalism with it, where it'll be able to connect the dots, but it could also very easily create a fake narrative where now all of a sudden you don't know what to believe and you're being led astray, where it's no longer a skilled propagandist that is in office that is pulling the levers. And I use the term propagandist as a bad term, right?
Yeah, I get it.
You no longer have this one guy like a Joseph Goebbels that a terrible human being, and he is there pulling the chain. Now you have literally anybody can be this propaganda puller that all they have to do is put in a couple keywords, make an article for this, and that's what happens, which I think makes the threat much more pervasive as far as propaganda goes.
It's going to be interesting. Do you remember Art Bell, the Coast to Coast radio show guy from the 90s? I don't know if you knew much about him or not.
I knew the
was
Prince of Bel Air.
Yeah, he did AM talk radio. He was syndicated on like 500 stations, and real cool dude. He was kind of like, he was into X-Files kind of stuff, and he'd interview live guests. Anyway, he passed away in 2017. And the other day, somebody posted this video, a deep fake audio, basically like a 25-minute episode using his voice, and it was pretty damn believable. Like, it wasn't perfect, but it was so much closer even than stuff from 2-3 years ago. And in 10 years, like, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell the difference between real and fake when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yep. I don't think you will be able to either. I think it's going to be so incredible. You're just not going to know. I was watching one the other day, a deep fake of Biden, and it looked and sounded just like the guy, and you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell otherwise.
I don't know. Good and bad, right? Like I said, there's going to be people who are going to use it for good, and there's going to be people who are going to, use it to their own benefit for sure. And it'll be interesting. And the other thing is, my opinion, you can't stop it. Like, it's coming whether you want it to or not, right? It's like it's like trying to throw a teacup of water on a fire. So either you embrace it and learn how to use it, and hopefully use it for our advantage or our good, or sit back and be taken advantage of by it.
Do you remember the Google engineer that was fired for claiming that there was a sentient AI that Google had created?
Vaguely. I think I might have seen an interview with him the other day, but I might be wrong. I'm not sure.
So I personally believe that they have it. And I think that OpenAI, this is a huge step towards potentially another one being created as well. This is something that it's going to happen. Of course, you end up with Isaac Asimov type philosophical things with, well, what is consciousness? All that nonsense, whatever. You're going to end up with a really smart computer that's going to be very powerful very soon.
Absolutely. I have no doubt. And I think we're heading, I think we're seeing the beginnings of it. It'll be interesting. I don't know. Sometimes you think, it's funny. Sometimes you see a technology coming along and you're like, man, where's that going to be in 5 years? And then in 5 years, they've done nothing with it. And then other times you think there's no way it's going to happen in a year or two. And in 6 months, it's blown up, So it'll be, I think this one's here to stay. I think it's going to.
It is. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and grow. I think a good indicator of that too is when you see like the number of downloads that it has had within the past 3 months since November, and it's more than any other app in history within that time frame, I believe, right?
I think so. It's pretty yeah. And there's lots of times I've gone to log on and it you can't even get in. It's what do they want, like full, or the servers are overloaded or that sort of thing, right? So
yep. Well, and here's one of the dangers that I think you're going to see happen with it. And I'm not trying to be lewd or anything of that nature. I'm just saying this is something you are going to see happen. Is I think you're going to see a huge wave of pornography addiction, because you can create that with these types of software, and it's no longer where a kid is going to have to go to his friend's house to find dad's hidden magazines. It's going to be right at his fingertips, or he's going to be able to make that himself through the AI. When you combine that prevalence with virtual reality, in which it's going to merge with that, and you combine that with other technologies that we have coming, you end up with a very scary situation. And there are all kinds of ramifications for that, as far as divorce rates and other things of that nature that'll come from this.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's hard, when something comes out, like I said, it's the same as a gun. You can look at a gun, and a gun's amoral. It doesn't hurt or help anyone by itself, but depending on who picks it up and who runs with it is going to be the person that either uses it to defend their family or uses it to shoot up a school, right?
Yep. And I can see, like, if we're talking about using AI, like the Da Vinci system for better surgical techniques and stuff, yeah, absolutely. Who's against that, right? Most certainly not the guy that's on the table. He's not against it.
Sure.
But if we're talking about other things where we're talking about purposefully swaying public opinion for a some type of evil agenda, or we're talking about porn, or we're talking about anything of that nature, anything else that's wicked, then this is a very powerful tool that's got huge implications.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And
Yep.
it's going to, yeah, like I said, it's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting next half decade to decade to see where this ends up for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Did you ever see Slaughterbots, that mockumentary?
No.
It's definitely worth watching. It was put out probably about 10 years ago. And Slaughterbots is like 10 minutes long. And basically what they're doing is showing a dystopian future society. They say, we have created this drone, this little teeny drone. You can't shoot it, and we've made swarms of them.
Yeah,
and they're little kamikaze drones.
I did see that. Yep.
So the point of the video was to show people, listen, all of this technology is already out there. We've already got explosives, we've got drones, we've got swarm technology software. We've got all this. Just nobody has put it together yet, and nobody has had the intent to use it yet like that. Well, now you've got the war in Ukraine, and we're seeing these types of kamikaze drones being used left and right. Slaughterbots has become reality. This was put out years ago, and it was the warning, this is what's coming, and then it came. You're going to see the same thing with this. You're going to see the same thing where within 5 or 10 years, like you were saying, it's going to be a different world because of this, because of AI.
And, you know, I love science fiction for that reason, because I often look at science fiction when you're talking about, well, you know, mockumentaries and that sort of thing, is it's kind of the chicken and the egg thing. You know, when you look at, say, Star Trek from the 60s, and you look at like the little communicator devices, right? Yep. So did they look at that? Obviously, somebody looked at that and said, you know what? In 20 or 30 years, people are probably going to have some sort of mobile communication device. Or did Star Trek influence humanity to, you know what I mean? Like, which one came first?
I view it through the lens of that the writer is saying, this is the tech that we have, and this is what I could see being used in the future. And he's right. I think that's what happens most of the time, whether you're looking at like stuff that was written in the 30s where there was a computer the guy would carry in his hand or whatever.
Absolutely. And I think of like RoboCop. You're talking about, you know, like marrying, I don't know if you call it law enforcement or military with, you know, the weapons and the AI and that sort of thing. And I was a big fan of a lot of Paul Verhoeven stuff in the late 80s, because I think really good, effective, both satire and science fiction look to the near future. You know, when you do like H.G. Wells' Time Machine or something, and they go 10,000 years in the future, whatever it is, that's hard because anything could happen. But, you know, when you do the near future, like 20, 30, 50 years down the road, and especially when you take kind of a, I don't know, a nihilist view of it, it can be kind of interesting. Terminator is another one, right? We're dealing with, I mean, I don't want to say Skynet, but that kind of artificial intelligence right now.
And well, the thing about Terminator 2, like for forever, it's been viewed as if you say anything about Skynet or Terminator, you're absolutely crazy. And yeah, absolutely. People could take that too far with that. But let's not also forget that the World Economic Forum is talking extensively about artificial intelligence being involved in governance. And we know the WEF is involved with the idea of a world government. So, I mean, you literally are talking about using AI for world governance. That's what they discuss. You can listen to their guys talk about it. Speeches, you can see what they've written online. I mean, it's all over the place. They don't hide it.
And people wonder why I'm an anarchist. I mean, when it comes down to anytime government gets involved, and I don't care if it's left, right, center, whatever it happens to be, they just find a way to, I don't know, make life more of a hindrance to people than they probably should, I suppose. So
the movies that I think that will have the most, that touch on modern day the best is Elysium, where you have like the robot cops.
Yep.
And there's those little drone guys in there too. I can definitely see that. Minority Report always.
Oh, I know. I hate to even have to say that, but you're not wrong there.
In many ways, we've already got it where people are looking for pre-crime to prevent crime, and not prevent crime in the sense of, well, let me lock my doors so there's no crime of opportunity, or let me hide my phone under the car so there's not that temptation. It's not the prevention in that sense, but let's actively go out and get this person, even though they haven't done anything whatsoever, but because we think they could.
I know. And when I seen that at first, it blew me out of the water because I don't even know how to put it, but it's because people harp on not pigeonholing. Everybody wants to be an individual. Nobody wants to be treated as a group, or nobody wants to be looked down upon because of something like that. But at the same time, the whole idea behind Minority Report, and I'm sure at some point in the future, it'll be, we're going to punish you for something that you have the potential to do, and that gets really scary really quick.
Yep. And I mean, we've already seen that in history. Even once more, we can look back to the 1930s, and that was what Hitler was using to say, you know what, the Jews, they spread typhus. That's what they're going to do. They're going to spread typhus, and they're going to poison our wells. And so we need to start making these laws for this to get rid of these people so we can have an ethnic cleansing here. And it was Minority Report. It is what it was.
That's been a common tactic, amongst people groups as long as humanity's been around. I mean, even something as simple as the Spanish flu, was basically called the Spanish flu because, people, I guess in Spain it was called the French flu or something. Anyway, it was used as a way to blame it on another ethnic group, and that's been a thing, I mean, you can go back to Bible times and, what were the people? Was it not Gentiles, but I can't remember who the people were that were looked down upon at that point, So
there's the Samaritans.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you very much. Yeah. And funny how Samaritan has become a positive term nowadays. Hey,
like the Good Samaritan.
Yeah. But it's funny how that parable or whatever has been turned around, and the word is a good thing now, I guess, 2,000 years later.
Well, and I'm trying to think which way I want to go with this. Yeah, you can definitely see where. Okay, so if we're looking at terms and concepts that people have changed or used differently nowadays compared to how they originally were within the Bible, I think a lot of that is from people. They want the good things of a relationship with Christ without having the relationship in Christ. So you'll have people that'll talk about, we just need to love one another. And in reality, these are like, you have the Antifa and the communist people that are saying this. And they're some of the most hateful people you have ever met. So I think that's one side of that. Yeah.
I don't know that bugs me. But I got to say, and I don't want to, it works on both sides of the dichotomy too, because I wish it didn't, but it unfortunately on the left or the right, I guess that's why I kind of, like I said, consider myself apolitical, is the fact that, there's love and, well, I shouldn't say love, but I think there's hate that comes on both sides sometimes. And that sucks, or at least the people who, how do you want to put it? It may not be genuine, but there's the negativity on both sides, if you know what I mean.
There's nothing wrong with hating what's evil. But like the Good Samaritan, he was the truth of the story there that Jesus was saying is that, listen, who was this man's neighbor? You got the Samaritans and the Jews hated each other, and that hate went both ways. But it was this guy that was showing the love of Christ that was loving his enemy.
Absolutely. So we were kind of sliding down the kind of the road of because we've only got we've been a half hour in already. We're doing good. But
oh wow, okay,
yeah, I know. Yeah. This is what happens every time we talk, so I love it. But so Aden had me on his show a while ago, guys, and
yep.
He picked my brain on some of my favorite post-apocalyptic pop culture, and it's become kind of a theme around here. And not to take a kind of hard 180, but I wanted to get a little of that in so I didn't miss you on it, because I really wanted to pick your brain a bit. So I don't know. Where do you want to start? So, Aden's also an author. I don't know why you talked about your articles, but you've written a few books too. Like the
Yes,
one
sir.
that Zombie Choices. Can you chat about that? And then we'll kind of go into some of your favorite stuff.
Man. Yeah. So Zombie Choices. So during lockdown, I lost my job. Right. And so here I am for months with no job. I've always had, not always, but for the most part of my working life, I've had more than one job. So I was still working as a locksmith because, we're key personnel.
Yeah.
So
Sorry. That's good.
It's a very safe job, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
and it's really opened a lot of doors for me, but dude, I could do this all day.
Everything you're going to say hinges on your next statement. So.
Oh, that was a good one too. I didn't even think about that one. So I was working as a locksmith, had lost my main job and didn't have as many hours going on. And the locksmith hours, there wasn't a lot of them. I was like, I've got to do something. And I'm always writing, so I'm going to pump out another book. And so I wrote Zombie Choices. I call it my video game in a book. It's like 400 plus pages, but you can navigate through like difficult decisions of a survival environment and be like, okay, do I save that baby that's in that car that I can hear crying? Then I turn to this page. Or do I save my own skin and take off running because there's a zombie 300 yards that way? Turn to this page. So it's little situations like that through the whole story. And I tried to make it as well so it had as much replay value as possible, where you can see different awards that you can get. Maybe you can cure the virus, or maybe you can get the furthest page distance, things like that.
That's cool. So it's like those choose your adventure books that we used to read in elementary school, is it? But on a higher level.
Akin to that. Same concept anyway. Yeah.
How hard is that? Like you've got to write for a multitude of outcomes at that point, do you?
As far as books go that I've written, it was the most fun it was most certainly a heck of a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. So what you do if you want to write one of these is you got to make a decision tree. And so you have this huge, like connection of nodes, and okay, this node leads to these three nodes, and these three nodes lead to these 20 nodes. And then you keep on going like that with it. And so that's how you do it. You want the nodes to come and kind of tie back. So that way you end up with a kind of like a DNA, or like if you took a balloon and you squeeze the middle of it so that the nodes all come back to main points. Otherwise, you'll have written a 3,000 page book.
That's cool. I wondered how. Okay, that makes sense though. So you kind of got to spider web it into a thought matrix or thought tree or whatever to make sure everything kind of follows back.
Yep. And that was the cool thing is I would just wake up and be like, all right, let's write some crazy stuff today. And today I'm writing about you're surviving a zombie apocalypse on an island. And tomorrow I'll write about you're running through the gym, getting chased by the zombies at the beginning of the outbreak. It was all over the place. It was fun getting it all to tie together.
That's cool. So was there any inspiration for that book? Like, are you, was there any certain either zombie literature or,
I was a huge Walking Dead fan until about season 4.
That's pretty close here. We usually say about season 5 here. So I dig you.
Yeah, it may have been season 5 too. It's just been so many years. I can't remember. The best is season 1, episode 1. That they should have just stopped after that.
It could be its own standalone movie.
It was awesome.
In some ways, it's got a lot of similarities to 28 Days Later. You ever seen that movie?
I've seen little pieces of it, but that's about it.
So good. One of my, I don't know, I'd almost venture to say, I actually think I put that on my top of zombie films of all time, but I just, it very similar. A guy wakes up in a hospital after a zombie apocalypse. And it's, man, you're right though. That first episode is really, really good. I never asked you about this before. Have you been watching The Last of Us at all?
I haven't. No. So this is going to sound super nerdy, right? So for years, like I've watched a lot of videos of people playing the game just because it's such a great, deep story. We talked about love of story, right?
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. And I heard a movie was coming out with Hugh Jackman was going to be the main character, and I guess that got shelved after 2020. I don't know. But with the TV series out, I've been talking with some people. I'm like, man, we need to watch this. This sounds awesome.
Becky and I, my wife, are doing a Friday night episode, Friday night recap show here as part of the podcast.
Yeah.
So it's been, oh my God, it's been so good. It was, yeah, I am not a video game player per se, but a couple of years ago, Becky bought me a PS4 and I played through The Last of Us 1. And it is, you're right. There's nothing better than story. There's just that. It's funny because I've talked to a few people and you'd probably know this better than me, but there's only, was it 5 or 7 story types in the world? I can't remember. Do you know how many there
okay.
are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
I
like there's the
about.
hero and the tragedy and the comedy or whatever, right? And
man versus nature and so on.
Yeah, exactly. But what makes it is the individual story, the characters that are tied into it. And, if you have emotional stakes in that story, that's what jumps up and grabs you. And that's what The Last of Us has done. It did so well. And I'd never, like I said, I'm not much of a video game player, but it definitely was a story that it was interesting to watch and emotional to experience, which is weird to say about a video game.
It's considered the most well-written video game storyline of all times.
And I can't see how it could be argued. I mean, I guess, I haven't played any of the other ones, but it is, I mean, it's cinematic. It's interesting. And yeah, I loved it. I've never played number 2 yet, maybe someday, but
I don't think the second one's worth it from what I've read.
I know I've heard that too. I'm happy with the first one for sure.
Yep.
So what about, let's go back then. What are your, well, let's start with movies then. We talked about TV a little bit, but what would be kind of your top post-apocalyptic films?
Oh, dude, I really like the one. Okay, so I like the Cloverfield universe, other than that stupid space one. Don't waste time with the third one. That shouldn't even have been made. But the second one, was it 10 Cloverfield Lane?
Yep.
That one's awesome, dude.
It is.
I greatly appreciated that one, though. I'll give something of a spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen it, the ending, you see the ending and you're like, oh, so I'm watching that genre now?
I know it. So you might know this, and we might have talked about this before. And if I have, anyway, 10 Cloverfield Lane was one of those scripts from the Blacklist or whatever, like the top 10 unproduced scripts each year. They make a list of them. So it was not a Cloverfield film or a Cloverfield sequel, but I guess it's Bad Robot is the production company. They got a hold of the script and decided to tack on that Cloverfield ending. So I think it's a perfect film without that tacked on ending for sure.
Yeah, to me, it's like when you can tell someone is writing an article for keywords and this keyword is just stuffed into the article over and over and over again. You're like, all right. That's what it was like. They just kind of stuffed that ending in there. Like, yeah, now it's Cloverfield. Oh, it is? No, it's not. I don't think so.
And it, like I said, it never, and the crazy thing is, it could have been 10 Cloverfield Lane. It could have taken place in the Cloverfield universe, but it didn't need that last 3-minute tacked on ending. You're right. That is such a good film. One of the best for sure.
So I really like that one. That's probably one of my favorites. As far as post-apocalyptic, I'm trying to think of other ones that we haven't talked about already. I wouldn't consider The Village post-apocalyptic, but there's definitely statements about society that could be made there.
Yeah. You like that one? Because that's an overlooked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that because that is definitely an overlooked film from Shyamalan's, pantheon of work for sure. What do you like about it?
I think that's one of his best.
Yeah. I remember seeing it.
Oh, dude, everything about it.
Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
And you're fine. I like it because it's pure horror, and pure horror where it's not cheap jump scares. It's not just gore fest, which is just stupid and a waste of film. It's pure horror, like Alfred Hitchcock style, where you are not only emotionally invested, but your heart is like do, wondering what's going on. You're in the story. You can't wait for the end of it. And it's just a scary experience. It's cool. It's just cool.
I think it's almost a shame that Shyamalan, his first the Sixth Sense, because he became known for that twist ending.
Yep.
And because I think he excels the most at creating atmosphere and tension in his films, like Signs. I mean, that movie just gets under your skin. And like you said,
Yep.
The Village as well. He's so good at that. And it's almost hamstrung him in some of his writing by being known as the guy that has to surprise you. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's like when you see Sam from Lord of the Rings and he's in Stranger Things all of a sudden.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wait a minute. You're supposed to be with Frodo, dude.
Yeah. Kind of out of the ordinary. It doesn't quite work or something.
Yep. It's not, it don't work.
And like I said, I like The Village. I don't always think about The Village because, like I said, I saw that years ago, and Signs is what I fell in love with, and I've gone back and rewatched that. I don't know, probably 30 or 40 times at least. But The Village, what I like about The Village is it's a psychological horror too, and it's it plays on sociology and community, and and the ending works for it too. Like it doesn't feel, I don't know, it didn't feel pigeonholed or anything. Like with Signs, the whole water thing, it didn't, like, it was there. I guess if he wanted to spend the time setting it up, he could have. It didn't need to be a surprise. It was just an homage to War of the Worlds, and I was cool with that.
I think he did an excellent job with Signs, with building up the tension to where when the baseball bat scene comes, like you're cheering, you're like, about freaking time. We're waiting for this. But then there's also the plot hole where it's like, dude, like you could have had every little kindergartner on the planet would have been out killing aliens. Like super soaker, get them, water balloon. Like,
I never thought of the super soaker, but you're right. That is so true. And
our tanks are just big spray hoses now.
And it didn't, like the water thing, whatever. It was what it was. I didn't hate that part of it, but it almost felt like, hey, if you want $40 million to make your movie, you better make us another film that has a shock ending, And that's probably my only kind of complaint with it. Because what I love about what he does, and I believe this was Hitchcock that said it, the monster you don't see is scarier than the monster you do.
Yep.
And he does that so well in Signs. Just that, I think if I remember correct, there's only 60 seconds of the entire film that you actually see an alien in.
Well, you're definitely right, because you have the baseball bat scene, you have the TV scene, and there's a brief scene where somebody is the silhouette scene outside the window. But what Hitchcock says there is not only true within film, but within real life too. I mean, if you look back at 2020 and nobody could see anything, man, and people were losing their freaking minds. Like people were acting crazy, and Hitchcock was right with that. Like it's the monster that you don't see that people are afraid of. Because
that's what inspires the anxiety. It's that fear of the unknown, because if you know what the monster is, you're either, one of two things. You're either going to resign yourself to your fate or hopefully figure out a way to defeat it. But if you don't know what you're fighting, or you can't see what you're fighting, how much scarier is that?
Yep. Well, and if we go back to film, you can see this exhibited in World War Z, which is completely different from the book.
Yes, it is.
So it's through the whole movie, people are terrified and screaming and running and helpless. And by the end of it, when people figure out, hey, this is how we beat this, you have people that are fighting the zombies with swords and spears and charging at them. And the unknown is gone. So the fear is largely gone as well.
Absolutely. I agree. And, we could go back to 2020 COVID that way. And, maybe the first month or two when there was an unknown and we really didn't know, or, some people can say they did or didn't, but I'll be honest, those first maybe 6 weeks to 2 months, I was concerned because I didn't know, hey, is this going to be something serious? Is it going to be bad? You just don't know. That fear of the unknown is what, like I said, it's what tears your mind apart, Yep.
I was the same way. So I got years ago, I went to grad school for public health and all that. I've been something of a epidemiology nerd, keeping track of just different stuff. And so it was in like December that I was seeing this stuff with China, and I'm thinking like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then you get the first case in Canada, which is the first case in North America. And then I'm going, dude, like it's game over. Like it's coming here now. And it was about March after I had been keeping I have a little notebook full of all the statistics for a good chunk of 2020 that I would go in and update every day or two. And it was about when I got 3 months into it that I looked at my statistics and I was like, dude, I've got like 0% of the population here, 0% of the population here, like 0.0 or 0.1, like just nonsense. Like this is a nothing burger.
Right. And I mean, I always hate it because when you look at it, like anybody who passed away from it, I feel bad for their family. I feel, whatever it is, I know like it wasn't a nothing burger to those individual people. But when you base what happened on numbers and across an entire population, yeah, thank God it wasn't what it could have been or what maybe we projected it was going to be. Because if it were something, that had the lethality of, say, the Spanish flu, for instance. Anyway, we could go down that rabbit hole all night. But yeah, I'm glad it wasn't. Let's put it that way.
You ever read F.A. Hayek, where he wrote The Road to Serfdom?
No.
You would like him. But one of the things he points out, he was a survivor after World War II. He lived in Europe at the time, and he later became like an economist is what he was, and a political philosopher. But he wrote about that. He said, listen, if you got people, and I'm putting this in Southernese for you.
Appreciate it.
Yes. You got people that want to control everything and think that they are the ones that get to determine the fate of economy. That's a man's life. Like you're deciding this guy gets to feed his family and this guy doesn't. Do you really want people with that degree of power? And do you really think they would make the correct decisions if that was even possible for them with the sheer amount of data? Like, okay, this guy, a billion people down the line. And that's what we ended up with 2020 was ignored. We ended up 100%. Here I am. I'm out of a job, and I'm just like, dude, I didn't think that would happen. Like,
if anybody ever asks me more government or less government, I'm going to say less government every single day, because I would much prefer making my own decision about whether going to work or not going to work than allowing someone else to base their decisions on whatever they want to base their decisions on. And that I thought that most people felt that way, but I guess maybe I was probably wrong,
Well, it's fear, man. It's fear. And like we were saying with AI, propaganda works, man. And when you've got it prevalent where it's everywhere, you can get even smart people to do stupid stuff or to believe stupid stuff. That's what is it? iRobot, where you are the dumbest smart person I've ever met.
Oh, absolutely. You can even get people to believe things that they can, that they could literally see with their own eyes. And I don't know. I hate to pick on flat earthers, but I'm going to do it because you can hop in a plane and fly around the earth and see it, but there's people that'll just deny it. No. And I don't get it. And I know there's some of them in our communities, and I'm cool with that. You can believe whatever you want. I just don't. That's one thing I can't figure out how you can believe.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I don't know. I get it. Like I said, I am totally fine with anybody believing whatever they want to believe, but I just can't. I don't know when it's something you can literally go and experience for yourself. But whatever, it is what it is. CGI, baby. That's what it's always blamed on.
There you go. Right? It's CGI. Birds aren't real.
Oh, don't even. Yeah. Oh my. So let's see. How about books? Are you a reader?
Yeah, I like to read a lot. Let's see. I just finished reading Savage Continent by Keith Lowe, I believe was the author's name, and that is a look at post-World War II Europe, and It was complete anarchy. It was no law whatsoever, and it looks at what happened there with that. I finished that one. Let's see what else. I'm trying to see if I have anything laying around here at the moment. That's the main one that I just finished. I do have one I want to read on Rome. Just, I don't know, to shake it up a little bit. But as far as, here's a shameless plug, talking about 2020 and lockdowns and all that. One of my most recent books is called Assault on Reason, Keeping Human Rights and Public Health. And it looks at all these different questions like, okay, how do we keep human rights involved if we really do have an issue? We have this crazy issue that's a true pandemic that's going across the globe. How do we tackle this without trampling all over human freedom? And so that's what that book looks at. It's published by Blacksmith Publishing, and you can find that at either barnesandnoble.com or Amazon.
So what's your what is your underlying I don't know, principle or main point in that? Because how does, I mean, I know what my answer for that would be, but what's your answer for how do you deal with something like that without trampling on individual rights?
I go topic by topic with it. So for example, I look at, okay, you've got a true pandemic. This isn't fake statistics or anything like that. This is something truly killing people. And you actually have created a cure, but you've got limited amounts of cure. How do you decide who gets it first? And so my thoughts on that is, first and foremost, you're going to have to give it to the healthcare providers, because if they say, well, hang on a minute, we're working with all the sick people, you're not going to take care of us, they'll go on strike, and then you have no healthcare whatsoever. So you have to give it to them. Other than that, I think one of the best ways that you could do it would be through a lottery system. Akin to,
good man. Yeah, sorry. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
You're thinking of Matt Damon with Contagion.
Oh, well, yeah, that was part of it for sure. But I can't see any other way of doing it.
Well, that's what they did. That's what they did. And I think that's the best way to do it there without causing any type of issue. Because if you say, okay, we're going to give it to all the white people first, you're going to have a problem. If you say we're going to give it to all the Californians first, you're going to have a problem. If you say we're going to give it to all the immigrants first, you're going to have a problem. The only way that you could do it without there being a problem would be a lottery.
Yes. Hey, I can handle that. I'm cool with that. I mean, because when it comes down to it, life is messy. And when you need to make a decision like that, okay, let's slide back to like the early days of, like I said, the early days of the pandemic. I would not have or whatever you want to call it, I would not have wanted to be a politician needing to make those decisions in those first couple of months, based on almost no data, because it was a lose-lose situation for them no matter what they did. Now, I don't agree with what they did, of course, but yeah, I love what you mentioned, taking the decision out of the hands of any individual. I'm good with that. I can handle, I'm a math guy. I can handle, if you've got, enough medicine for 10% of the population, well, it sucks, but that really is the only fair way to do it.
It's the old drawing straws kind of thing, really, is what it is.
No, you're not.
It's nothing
wrong.
new. It's not a new idea.
Well, all I can tell you is I would trust a lottery before I would trust the government. So let's put it that way. The problem is anyway, how do you make sure the lottery is fair and unbunbiased, right? So,
well, I talk about that in the book too. But
see, good man. See, I
have to read it.
I will. Yeah. So, what about if you had to go back and say, like, these are my favorite books, or the books that you've read that have changed you or influenced you the most?
Oh man,
any certain one? I know that's tough. I know.
All right, let's think. All right, so if we're looking at economics or politics type stuff, The Road to Serfdom would be up there, from F.A. Hayek.
Okay.
He was a libertarian writer, and it's an excellent book. I really, really like it. If we are looking at fiction, the one that's probably impacted me the most would have to be, Lord of the Rings, but there's another one called The Children of Hurin, and that would probably be even higher up, or The Silmarillion. Either The Children of Hurin or The Silmarillion would be there as far as fiction. If we are looking at history, it would probably be maybe Schindler's List.
Okay.
Oscar Schindler was no angel.
Sure.
But he did a lot of good. Let's see. If we are looking at let's see. We talked about history, we talked about economics, we talked about
how about philosophy?
philosophy. Okay. I really like Francis Schaeffer.
Really?
I
Can
do.
you? Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about them. Can you
Okay.
expound
Yeah.
a little?
So Francis Schaeffer was around post World War II time. He
Okay.
was born in Pennsylvania, and so this ties in well with Savage Continent. World War II is devastated. You go there, and it's just rubble everywhere. World War II is devastated. Europe is devastated.
Sure. Yeah.
And Francis Schaeffer, he moves with his wife and his kids to Switzerland. He doesn't really know why, but he moves there anyway. And he ends up with all these people that are coming to his place and asking him the questions of life, and just out of the blue. And he ended up helping a lot of people with the different questions they were facing. Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? What's my purpose? If all that it really is time and chance, then love is meaningless. Then my personality is meaningless. Then my relationships are meaningless. And Francis Schaeffer addresses all of that in his writings, and he did that throughout his life too. He's got an awesome story. His wife wrote a book. Her name was Edith Schaeffer. It's called Labri, Labri, which is French for shelter. And as far as Schaeffer's books himself, he wrote like 20 of them. I am a big fan of How Shall We Then Live? And I'm a big fan of the Christian Manifesto. And I'm a big fan of I like The God Who Is There. Those are probably my top 3 of Francis Schaeffer's.
Okay. Yeah. How is it? How Then Shall We Live? Is that right? I've heard of that one before. So
yep. How Shall We Then Live? Yeah. So in that one, he outlines the rise and fall of Western civilization is the main context of the book.
I just wanted to throw this at one step closer. Just comment. It said Hayek is great, but I've really come to love the writing of Thomas. Is it Sowell or Sowell? Sowell? I can never know how to pronounce that. You know?
I've heard of the name. It rings a bell. I don't know too much about him, though, to be honest.
I'm not. I want to say I think he's libertarian or even maybe leaning anarchist. I cannot remember. If somebody in the comments want to, I'd love to just pull it off and say I know exactly who he is, but I'm not going to pretend to do that. So if you want to throw in a little summary of what his main kind of thrust is, I love it. I always love picking people's brains to see where their kind of thoughts were built or what kind of influential thinkers have influenced them, because everybody comes from a different background, and that's cool. I wasn't really familiar with Schaeffer, so I'll have to look into him.
I highly recommend him. He was around the same time as C.S. Lewis and is considered right on par with Lewis as far as theology.
It's me. RZ says Soul is a common sense conservative.
Okay.
Well, that's all right. Yeah, I can handle that. Any other fiction you've read over the years that you've kind of jumped out at you and you've really enjoyed?
Let's see. Isaac Asimov is probably one of the ones that's gotten me thinking the most as far as AI and stuff. Read him years ago. If we're looking at current events, I think everybody needs to read The Singularity is Near.
Okay.
So that was written by Ray Kurzweil, who I would consider to be the leader of the transhumanist movement. I don't like transhumanism. I don't like it at all. But this book was written back in 2005. And what he is talking about is very much pertinent to today. So he looks at, one of his predictions is that by 2030, we will have blood-borne nanotechnology that will be used in people. He also talks, like we were talking earlier, as far as like porn and AI, he talks about that being a thing. The merging of man with machine, which we have already seen in many ways. He discusses that in 2005, and he's right about a lot of stuff. As far as robotics, I would recommend Nick Bostrom's Super Intelligence.
Okay.
It's got a picture of an owl on the cover, and he looks there at the dangers of an artificial intelligence run amok. And it's a very good book. Nick Bostrom as a philosopher is terrible, but when he's talking about robotics, he's pretty good.
Okay. Very cool. One Step says, Soul is a great data guy who tries to dig for the truth. He's on the libertarian side. Great books on economics and history.
Okay, I'll have to check him out. Is that the black guy with the glasses? He's got the gold rim glasses.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure that's exactly who that is.
Okay, yeah, I've seen some of his quotes online, and if I'm remembering correctly, I really liked his quotes that I saw.
Well, we got a couple of minutes yet. Can I pick your brain about economics?
Yeah, man. What do you want to talk about?
Well, what is your personal philosophy on economics? Where do you kind of fall out in what you believe about the market and that sort of thing?
Let's see. How do you say it in French? Laissez-faire or whatever.
Laissez-faire?
Yeah, that one. Never been much of a French speaker. That's where I'm at. Is leave me alone. I do think that there needs to be law and structure. That without it, that man has a wicked heart and is sinful and fallen, and will engage in wicked things, like we see with these library drag shows for kids and stuff like that. But I also think man needs freedom, and otherwise you end up in a totalitarian nightmare.
So let me pick your brain then. Just want to play devil's advocate. But if one believes that man is inherently evil, how do you who chooses who sets the laws at that point? Right? Because you know what I mean? Because if you say that man is inherently evil, but we need laws and restrictions to oversee that evilness, aren't those laws and restrictions just coming out of that same evilness?
Okay, so this is a good point, man. This is a good question. So you're right. Yeah, if we end up with fallen wicked men that are making the laws for fallen wicked men, you end up with fallen wicked laws. But if your law originates from somebody that is perfect and good and loving and merciful, then you have good law. That'll still be good law for fallen, sinful people. And that's where you have to have a creator. You have to have God to give you that law. Otherwise, like you were saying, you end up with bad laws made by bad people for bad people.
So what if I don't agree with that? What if someone doesn't? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like because to play devil's advocate, what if someone else said, you know what? Maybe Allah should be the guy who gets to pick what the laws are. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so as far as people saying, well, you're talking about God the Father and Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit, but I believe, or someone would be advocating for Buddha or Hinduism or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so that's where you end up with that big question there where someone's saying like, man, I don't believe in your God. And this is where I would point people to Francis Schaeffer's writings. I've been a follower of Christ since I was 13. Christianity is the only system that makes sense. Schaeffer spells this out perfectly, where he's saying, whether we're looking at the historical validity of the Bible, where we're saying, okay, people believe in Shakespeare, that he was a real guy. People believe that Archimedes, they were real guys, and so is Leonardo da Vinci, but we have way more proof that Jesus Christ lived and that Jesus Christ was who he said he was, yet people want to pretend that he didn't exist. And so that's where, when we're looking at the different systems, I think every other system falls down when we're looking at scrutiny, whether we're talking about consistency or we're talking about historicity. Every other system just disintegrates.
I can see that. Now, how do you protect? So, okay, because what I'm kind of, I guess, beating around the bush at or trying to get at is...
Yeah, man, you can ask me whatever.
Oh, no, I know. I'm just trying to formulate it in my head because I've had this conversation with my parents in the past as well.
Yeah.
So how do you, okay, so when you have the need for law and order, or at least when you feel that you have the need for law and order, how do you protect yourself from that same law and order being used against you?
Okay, so you're saying that I need law and order. I need to not have to worry about being murdered.
Right.
But what do I do if I'm living in 1940s Germany and now the law comes around and says that I can be murdered?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Well, again, I think this is where looking at God's law is where you find absolute truth. In life, if you don't have absolutes, you don't really have values. If you don't have that foundation where there is truth and it's certain truth, there is no waver in there, you're going to get tossed around back and forth, and you're going to collapse into moral relativism where this is right for this time and this is wrong for this time. But if you know this is what God has said, he's perfect, he's good, he's everlasting, he's been around forever, then you can say, look, this is evil and this is wrong. And you can say, this is good and this is okay. And that's where I think that having the understanding of that really helps someone to cope with those kinds of situations.
Sure.
Did that answer it? Or
yeah. So let me. So I've talked with my dad a lot about this over the years, and when he, coming from a Christian morality, says certain things should be either outlawed or not allowed, and I understand. I totally get where he's coming from, but at the same time, some of those same rules and laws were turned around and used against religious institutions during COVID to shut churches down or to reduce or eliminate gathering together. So I know where you're coming from, but I just have such a hell of a time bringing together the idea of the need for those laws, but at the same time, those laws are going to be and can be easily used against you.
I think that the founding fathers of America really summed that up good when they said that our nation is made for a good and moral people, or our Constitution was made for a good and moral people. Our system of government was made for a good and moral people, and it won't work for any other. And I think that's what you have here with this, with libertarianism. If you don't, or whatever, if you don't have boundaries, you're only going to end up arguing for evil. So if you don't have God's law to say, okay, we can go within this circle of activity, and once you step beyond, you do this, you do murder, well, that's wrong. You do this, well, that's wrong. And if you don't have that law, you end up where you can argue for, we need straight freedom to where we're going to cut the arms off of everybody that was born in Florida, or just something absurd, right? Like that, right? That's where I think God's law is vital, in that it keeps people, you're free, but you're not engaging in wicked actions.
No, I can see that. As far as, my individual moral compass, I live by, don't hurt me and don't steal my shit. And I'm good with that. And that's, I guess, to me, that's kind of the kind of focal point. I'm cool with anything else outside of that. Do what you want, practice your religion, do your thing. Just don't impose your laws or your rules on me. Do you know what I mean?
I want to turn the tables on you.
Sure.
So then why is it wrong for someone to steal your stuff then?
Because that is the only, and because I can appeal to my authority as well, which my authority would be the ultimate and only rules are: don't cause physical harm because I'm an anarcho-capitalist, and don't steal my shit because that's my ownership.
Why are those bad though?
Because that's my ultimate morality.
But would it be because you decided that though then? What if someone else decides differently?
They're allowed to. I have no problem with that, and I can defend myself at that point.
What if they argue that you don't have the right to defend yourself?
The same, you can turn it around and use the same kind of, how do you want to put it? The same sort of, you can use that exact same mindset toward, well, I'm going to believe that because it was divinely inspired as well, right?
Okay, keep going. Keep extrapolating.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, and I'm coming from an evangelical background for sure. So it's not that I'm against it. I just love playing devil's advocate here because I always enjoy the conversation. But
yeah.
So when I look at society as a whole today, it used to be, it seems to me that a minority, everybody is in favor of minority rights. And when you work your way down, the smallest minority is the individual. Okay. And when I look at it, the only thing that I can look at life and say is right is that everybody has their right to do what they want, as long as you're not physically harming or stealing from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And that's, so it sounds like you like Ayn Rand.
I do. Absolutely.
Yep. I like a lot of Ayn Rand stuff too. I don't agree with everything that she said, of course, but I do like a lot of what Ayn Rand has said, talking about the individual and everything. The argument I'm making is, okay, you're saying that it's wrong for someone to steal from you and so on and so forth, but you're deciding that. And if you're the product of time and chance, well, then this guy over here is the product of time and chance as well, and he decides something different. Well, what if his is diametrically opposed to yours, where maybe his, what he believes is truth is that he gets to steal other people's wives, and that's right, because he's decided that. He's looked at the world around him, and that's the conclusion that he's come to. And this is why it's important that we get our truth not from ourselves. It's not from time and chance, but it's got to be from somebody eternal. It's got to be from somebody greater than us, that's got more knowledge than us, that can give us, like, this is what it is, that give us the truth.
Yes. And I can see that. But what if the person next to me says that their truth comes from whatever their ultimate belief is, right?
Mm-hmm. That's where we're going back to where they say, well, this is God over here.
Right.
That's not God.
Exactly. And I get it. That has been one of my biggest struggles and one of the most intellectually challenging concepts that I've had to, I guess, wrestle with over the last 2 decades, for sure. Do you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So if any of the listeners are interested in this, there's 2 books that I would recommend that look at this, that look at the validity of the Bible. And the first one is called More Than a Carpenter. It's a little teeny book. Okay. It's by Josh McDowell, I believe is the author.
Yes. I've read a couple of his books over the years.
Yeah, he had
one of his was a textbook in college that we had to read.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he had
The Case for Faith,
The Case for Christ, The Case for Faith, and a whole other within that series, The Case for this and this and this. But I would also definitely recommend Francis Schaeffer's books, looking at if the question that people are asking is, okay, as far as if life is just time and chance and meaningless, I would look at The God Who Is There, is a Francis Schaeffer book. If we're looking at, okay, well, how do I know it's you're talking about God the Father, The God Who Is There. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, really good. And if we're looking
put it in
at
the note here so people have it too. Schafer.
Yep. And I like the books that you had mentioned. Lee Strobel, he wrote those. The Case for Faith, The Case for Christ.
Yes. Yep.
The Case for a Creator. But I really like More Than a Carpenter, and I would highly recommend people checking that out.
Cool. Okay, I will. I'm going to give it I'm always looking for something. So,
but that's when you ask my my opinions on human freedom and economics. That's all. It's wrapped up in with who I am as a follower of Christ.
I get it, man. Thank you. There is nothing I love better than a civil discourse that challenges my beliefs and allows me to sit down and openly discuss things with people. I think that's lost in this world. And I think that I don't want to pigeonhole people, but my experience in today's world is that when 2 people differ on essential matters or things that are very, very central to their being, it tends to fall into a screaming match, at least online or in the Twitter. So I really appreciate you taking the time to cool and calmly discuss this sort of thing. I never expected to go down this route, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and for real, I'm always open to talking about whatever. I mean, man, we started off the podcast talking about porn. Like that was
I know. I dig it. I'm serious. It's not very often that I have a a conversation that is so challenging, and I appreciate this. This was a lot of fun. I really, really like this, Aden. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no problem. No problem.
So
And
how can people find you, Aden? I want to make sure we get that before we close up.
The places that I'm at most often is the Organic Prepper, probably.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yep. So over there, the Organic Prepper, I'll normally have like maybe 2 posts a week, something like that. The one that was just published today was on secret safes, where I look at like different places that you could hide things. And it's like an Ajax can and a hollowed out Coke can and like just cool stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's that. And then I'll do different like current events looks and stuff over there too. So that would probably be the easiest place. As far as books, if people are interested in some of my books, there's Assault on Reason, Keeping Human Rights and Public Health. There's Zombie Choices, an interactive story. The first one I ever had published is called The Faithful Prepper, a Christian's Perspective on Prepping, which looks at, is prepping a lack of faith in God? Is it showing that you don't trust in his provision? I had 2 new radio books that were just pumped out. There's one that's a study guide for the technician license, which
radio. I was trying to figure out what you meant. Yeah. Sorry.
Yep. So off-grid radio. I don't know if it would help you in Canada because I don't know if y'all have the same licensing requirements that we do.
Don't. It's a whole nother kettle of fare, whatever you want to call it, for sure.
Yeah. It's but I guess one of the things that I learned in high school was that that cartoons, they stick in my head. That's my head is Bugs Bunny, man. Like, so I drew a cartoon study guide for every question in the test bank for radio, for the technician license here in the States. But I've also got the Prepper's Guide to Post-Disaster Communications, which is a huge mouthful, but it's like using goofy little cartoons to help people get drilled into their head radio concepts for a disaster. You've had a massive blizzard that has swept through Alberta, and there's no power for the past 2 weeks. This is how you could use radio to communicate with everybody, make sure everybody's all right.
What was that? It was Prepper's Guide to, was it
Post-Disaster Communications. Yeah. I should have come up with a shorter title there, but
you know what? I know exactly what the book's about. So,
yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that,
you're right. Yeah.
Sometimes the catchy title's great, but then sometimes just to the point and, a one sentence summary works great too. So that's cool.
Or a paragraph on the front page.
And also, The Last American.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I'm over there every Saturday at Prepper Broadcasting, talking about really just whatever.
I'm just going to I just got a comment over on the Telegram group. Chris Dixon said, I was a fan of Aden Tate, or I think he's saying I wasn't sure if I was a fan of Aden Tate before tonight, but I've listened to him after tonight. I'm in. Great guy, very smart dude.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't know about how smart I am, but
oh no, you are. I appreciate because no, seriously. There's very few people that I can throw all of the concepts at that I threw at tonight, and you don't even have to hesitate. So you're welcome back anytime, my friend.
Awesome. Yeah. Next time you come on down to the beautiful South, man, we're going to have to go get a cheeseburger or something.
Oh yeah. I can do that. That'd be great. I would love that. Well, like I said, I'm going to be down that way for the month of like late September and basically all of October. So I would love to sit down and where do you recommend? What's the best place down south to eat a cheeseburger?
Oh, dude, man. We're excellent cooks. We make it all.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, once you pass that Mason-Dixon line into the cold and barren wintry lands of the North, you don't know what you're going to get. But down here in the beautiful South, man, we got all kinds of stuff.
As soon as I see my first Waffle House sign, I know I've arrived. That's all I can say. I love me some Waffle House. It doesn't love my keto diet, but I do love me some Waffle House.
You wouldn't fit in there, though, because you got too many teeth.
That's so true. Oh shit, that's bad. Oh well, Aden, thank you, my friend. If you want to hang for just a second, I'll close up the show and then I'll be right back with you and we'll close up. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. That was, sometimes I have a script lined out or a group of questions lined out or a central theme of where I want to go. And then other times I know I'm bringing on people that could carry the show even if I passed out while we were talking. And Aden's one of those dudes. So I left it open to just kind of chat and see where things went. I hope you enjoyed it. I loved it. We had just a fun conversation. I love being challenged. I love when my ears get a little warm because I'm just ever so slightly uncomfortable having to actually think instead of just going, going on the, what do you want to call it? Autopilot. So I got to say, I really, really appreciate Aden coming on, and he's welcome to come back to the workshop and pick my brain, and I'll pick his brain anytime. So make sure you follow him, guys. Make sure you give him some support. We'll be back tomorrow night with episode 250. And with that, guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.